occasion, once again, my name is Adeniran Ayodeji Bobby from Federal Department of Agric, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Nigeria. The theme of my presentation is strategy to start up youth in millet value chain. This presentation is in commemoration of the International Year of Millet Production 2023. The theme of the occasion is millet can grow on arid with minimum input and are resilient to change in climate. That is climate smart agriculture. Many countries are now shifting emphasis from forefront cereal crops such as rice, wheat, barley, and the rest, sorghum, then to millet. So the essence of this presentation is to broaden our horizon on how millet can be used to better the lot of rural dwellers through development of an effective efficient value chain system. Background. Well, background, sequel to unemployment, insecurity, famine, malnutrition, and social vices pervading in most sub-Saharan African countries and some other part of the world. It is necessary to strategize on how agricultural commodity promotion and development, being the most common resources available to rural dwellers, and it can be used to better their lot. However, millet has been identified based on the following attributes. The crop can be cultivated from grain as well as fodder in the semi-arid tropic region of Africa, Asia, and African countries that produce millet in larger quantities, such as Mali, Senegal, Nigeria, Niger, while Asian countries such as India, China, and the rest, they produce it too. However, millet is these are some of its attributes. It is most drought and heat tolerant crop with high water use efficiency. However, the crop is confined to low fertile and water soil. It has a remarkable ability to thrive in hostile environment and still come up with optimal yield. The crop responds very well to organic fertilizer, agricultural management, water harvesting, and still capable of giving high yield in extreme conditions. However, millet is available and it is achievable to rural people, unlike other resources that are not common. Take, for example, mineral resources are now common. We are looking at resource that is common and it is available to rural people so that we can develop a value chain on it and use it to better their lot. Economic importance. Taking into account of its economic use, it's a staple food in the Sahel region. It is frequently turned into flour, formed into huge ball, parboiled, turned into water paste using ferment milk. You know, many of the presenters have spoken a lot about this. because it contains little hydrocyanic acid. Millet, is also useful as great fodder. Green fodder has a safe amount of oxalic acid and is high in protein, calcium, phosphorus, and other minerals. The other attribute of millet can be used as feed for animal. Poultry is also made from, these are made from the glumes and pericarp. The stalks also can be used as fuel, wood, and in the same, and it's also useful for mulching, in normal farming practices. Millet can be consumed instead of gluten-containing cereal by those who have celiac disease. So the celiac disease, is a sort of hypersensitive to gluten, in the small intestine of human being. The disease is not limited to any age. It can be affected by either young or old, and as much as possible, it is better to look for kind of food that are free from gluten, to avoid this kind of sickness, especially when a patient is diagnosed with this kind of disease. It is better to avoid gluten-based food that have gluten. So in addition to its present usage as forage, millet have enormous potential as feed and food grain. Then, average global production of millet. We can see from the diagram, India have 38%, as the highest, Niger 12%, Sudan 9%, Nigeria 7%, and so on, to tell us, the production across the countries. Then, so looking at the average world production of millet, also this table, shows us the average across country as well. India is around 11.6 million tons, Niger 3.8 million tons, Sudan over 2.6 million tons, Nigeria is over 2.2, and so on like that. That gives us insight into how, the quantity of millet being produced across the world. Now, we are looking at average consumption, because all this information, when we are developing a value chain for a commodity, all this information are necessary, for us to actually know how useful that commodity it is to the people in that rural area. So we are looking at the average consumption pattern of millet. We are comparing Niger and Nigeria among rural and urban dwellers. The percentage, in terms of percentage of the household consumption, per capita expenditure, household expenditure, is observed that Niger is far ahead of Nigeria, in this area, because it is a staple food in a semi-arid region, and if you look at Nigeria, is far less in all these parameters to that of Nigeria, because Nigeria has a lot of, have different vegetations, forest, swamp, and all those things. So all those vegetation produce other source of food like root and tuber, other grains, vegetable, and the rest for Nigeria. That is why emphasis is not by the household, is not as much on millet like that of Nigeria. Nevertheless, there are states in Nigeria, most especially in the northern part of Nigeria, that millet can really support, and we can use it to better their lot. Nutritional benefits. We are looking at the nutritional benefit of millet. the most nutrient-dense member of cereal family. It has crude fiber more than sorghum, maize, rice, and wheat. It has high level of dietary fibers, as earlier said, B complex vitamin, vital amino acid, as well as vitamin E. It also has micronutrients, such as magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, zinc, calcium, copper, and many other minerals. Additionally, it has phytochemical that decrease cholesterol and and contain folate. We all know from the trend in the world dietary system, the havoc that cholesterol is most essentially is constituting to people, especially when people are getting to old age. So it is highly recommended that millet will be able to fill in this gap. Additionally, because it is already also, when we are looking at it, it is also readily available and produced locally. But more importantly, because of its high nutritional value, millet and food made from it should be promoted. Then the objectives. The objectives of the value chain, of the millet value chain. 1, it will increase income and well-being of millet youth farmer processor through organized millet production. It will develop an improved supply chain system through framework supplies of millet across the country that participated in the country. The distribution of the millet to the industries, to the household use, all those things will be well organized. Then it will build capacity of millet youth farmers and processors on improved practices through strategy to access funding. Also, it will create direct job and put in place a sort of sustainable strategy that it will, those things will keep on rolling. Then the improve and sustain nutritional status. It will improve and sustain nutritional status of the rural dwellers. So it will also generate revenue and foreign exchange earnings for the country that participated in the program. Strategies. This is where we are coming. We are really coming to. This is where we need to dwell much in it, because this is how the value chain. These are the models on which, or template on which, that value chain will be run. So we are looking at a youth farm settlement scheme. The program will involve the government of the participating country to identify and secure a reasonable acreage of farmland in areas that are suitable for millet cultivation. That is one. An average of 2 hectares farmland can be allocated to each participating youth and ensure that the profit margin realizable on the portion will be good enough to sustain each of the participating youth. That is what we mean, that it will provide reasonable annual income for the youth that are participating compared to their contemporaries, maybe that they are working with the government, maybe that they are artisan. It's a sort of employment provision. Then at the same time, housing unit, recreational facility, basic amenities will be provided at the project site as well. Government of such country will need to put in place market agencies that will be private sector led, but government will continue to regulate. The reason why, it is the demand market that drives production and processing. That one has to be fixed before the value chain can run. This marketing agency will continue to buy directly from the producer and also create market linkage for producer by buying at a guaranteed minimum price. This market agency will be regulated in such a way that there a sort of standard minimum price for those produce will be guaranteed. Government we enforce that on those market agencies, so that by the time you are selling your millet to a market agent or a sort of commodity board, definitely the price they will give at least will be able to take care of the cost and put your own profit margin on top. Then there will be input supply and financial agency to service the millet youth, but this agency will be regulated by the government. Also, there should be a financial services, like commercial banks, Bank of Agriculture, that we support those youth farmers in terms of financing their project, their individual projects. So all these measures will ensure sustainability of the program. In short, it will be a sort of a public-private partnership arrangement between government, you have input suppliers, seed companies, agrochemical, that we sell herbicide, pesticide, and fertilizer, to the beneficiary. Also, extension services and favorable policy. Also, those ones will be implemented by the government. At the same time, we in the picture, we also have the hosting community, who are the owners of the farmland. So as we have earlier mentioned, financial institution, commercial bank will be needed, as well as the millet farmers who are the beneficiary. Example of this existing farm settlement, although it is not for millet, but it's for other crops. But we have examples in Nigeria. Take, for example, we have Adodo, Agoiwoye, Ajegunle, Koka, Ibiade, Ikene, and Shawanjo in Ogun State, southwestern part of Nigeria. And we still have many others as well in other parts of Nigeria too. Then the next one is cluster through community-based farming. The program will encourage and facilitate millet youth farmers in the region on areas that are predominantly known for millet cultivation. It will encourage the farmers it will encourage them to farm on a contiguous land and support the inclusion of traditional institutions, which will be needed to solve problems that can emanate on land tenure system. The program can be facilitated by the Ministry of Agriculture or Farmland Development Agency established by the government, of that country. However, government need to facilitate the establishment of marketing agencies, input suppliers, financial institutions, all should be private sector-led organizations, and they will be regulated by the government. All these, they are necessary for the sustainability of the program, because it is when it is private sector driven that and the living of people are attached to this program, then that is how it can continue to sustain itself, even when government would have withdrawn from the project. So this is an example of a typical farm settlement. You can see the houses, then we can see their field, not far from the houses. Individual beneficiary are apportioned their plots where they will cultivate their farm. Example of cluster commodity-based farming. We can get it again in Nigeria, but it is not on millet. But I believe we can use the model. We can use the template. Example is Ijebu Development Initiative Poverty Reduction Program. It's a sort of a farm village in Ijebu, the local government of Ogun State, Nigeria. It is an aquaculture project, known as Eriwe, farm fishing culture. According to FAO, is the largest fish farm cluster in Africa. In 2019, according to that FAO, they said that up to 2 billion naira, that is about 2.8 million US dollars, exchange hand in that farming, in that fish farming community yearly. So we can use such a template to, to be adapted to millet as well. Import, the third one is import substitution stroke industrial contract grower scheme. In this case, government policy need to be modified to generate the value chain. Policies will be tuned towards use of local materials. Take for example, in food, beverages, bottling company, will be mandated, to use millet, where research has established total use or partial inclusion of a millet as raw material or as feedstock to this company. Because of the volume of the material that will be imported by this company is usually enormous. So definitely it will require a lot of millet, high quantity of millet to be produced. That means a very big market in that area. This will create huge market demand for millet in the country. The production will become lucrative because of better pricing, because this company will buy the millet better than the local market that people usually sell millet. Then the business of millet production will be very attractive. Everybody, including even the youth, they will be interested. Yet government still need to put in place, necessary regulatory agencies so that the system can run smoothly, as we have mentioned above. Example, I'm coming. Okay, this is a picture of women group that involve in contract farming. This women group, they will, the company, the factory will give them, the specification of the crop that they will cultivate, and by the time the thing is being produced, they will buy it off from them, at a very reasonable price. Example is in Nigeria, although that one is about cassava, is Thai Farm International Limited, located in Ososa, Ogun State, Nigeria, southwestern part of Nigeria. It's a multi-billion naira project, partner with a foreign investor, a South African. The project is hinged, as I've said, this thing, it is government policy that will create it. The project is hinged on the federal government policy of 10% inclusion of cassava into, wheat flour in Nigeria. And according to estimation, that 10% saved Nigeria over 350 billion naira. That means that money will go into the local farmers, the processor, instead of exporting that money to another country. It will create a lot of activity in that value chain. So it is the company is a mega processing factory, worth of million. Even a bank, an Apex Bank in Nigeria, Guarantee Trust Bank, also an investor in that project. What they do is that they give loan, they give credit to some of these contract farmers, in order to operate their farms. Apart from 10% inclusion into wheat flour, even some people have even developed it to the extent of using, that flour, that locally made flour, into sausage, biscuit, and some other pastries as well. So I believe such a model can also be adapted to millet. The fourth one is a free agro-industrial and export zone. It's an enormous area of land earmarked or selected in a number of places within the country, especially in area known to be the hub of production of a particular agricultural commodity. In this case, hub of millet production can be identified in a participating country. Both local and foreign investors are encouraged and facilitated to come and establish industry that make use of millet as material, as raw material for their factory. The hosting community, you know, where those investors will come and necessarily, they will also be willing, you know, through advocacy, you know, they would have sensitized them, so they will cooperate with this investor. Government, from its own side, will, will put in place favorable policies, you know, such as, tax holiday, you know, it may be 10 years, such an investor, you know, they may be given 10 years free tax. You know, and so many other things like basic amenities, good road network, adequate electricity. Also, security is also important in that environment, you know, to make the environment safe from criminal elements. In case of millet exportation, this place, you know, this industrial zone can also be used by exporting companies, you know, as an aggregation center. You know, it can even be turned to a sort of a semi-finished product, you know, such as flour that can be exported for various industrial purposes. We have that one in cocoa in Nigeria. Cocoa, although it's a tree crop, you know, nowadays, unlike before, that they buy cocoa and send it abroad like that. You know, nowadays there are companies that mill cocoa into a sort of semi-finished product. You know, that value chain alone will create job, you know, income for so many people. Even at that semi-finished product stage, you know, that one is there. Then all this will create huge market demand, you know, for millet in the country. Production will be more lucrative, I know, because of better pricing above local market. This, you know, the business, you know, will be attractive. Definitely, it will be attractive to everybody. And at the same time, government responsibility there is to provide, you know, regulatory, you know, regulatory agencies, you know, so as to ensure the smooth running of the program. This is an example of how agro-industrial zone look like. So an example in Nigeria that I can cite in Nigeria is that, you know, of recent time, last year, that around in 2022, special agro-industrial zone program, you know, that we boost food production, wealth creation, employment, you know, was commissioned, and it is supported by African Development Bank, IFAD, and Islamic Development Bank. You know, the project we take at the project is at its inception. You know, the project we take advantage of. You know, as I've said the other time, this is a sort of regional policy now. The project we take advantage of African Continental Free Trade Agreement. You know, that is that one. You know, the project we hinge on. You know, it is estimated that the program will create additional 550,000 direct jobs and contribute up to 10%, $10 million into Nigeria economy. Also, you know, I believe millet value chain can be part of this program in Nigeria, and such a thing too in other countries can also be initiated. The fifth one is the school feeding program. It is a government, this is also about government. It is a government initiated program whereby millet products such as cakes, snacks is served to pupils in elementary or primary school as lunch during break time. Considering the high nutrition attribute of millet, is a way of improving the nutrition and health status of school-age children. Also, considering the enormous population of the pupils, you know, it will create a very huge market. You know, you can consider maybe in a district, no, let us even talk of a region, how many elementary school and the population of children in those elementary school. You know, by the time you have to provide meal for such an enormous, you know how it will be. You know, Then also the actors along the millet value chain will be actively engaged, the rural dwellers, and it will also become a big and sustainable business in the region. This is an example of, in the school where this program has been carried out, how the children during the midday break time, they are being served by the meal. Generally, those meals will be, the food for those meals will be produced locally and grown by smallholder farmers. And all that kind of, in case of millet, it is very, very nutritious. This program will improve. Definitely, one of the advantages of a school feeding program is that it will improve enrollment of children. Many of the children that are on the street that they are not willing to go to school, by the time they hear from their peers that the food is being served, delicious food is being served in the school, it will attract them to school. And also it will reduce the population of the rate of dropout from elementary school, because those things will entice the pupils. These models also can also be adopted for millet value chain. So this is the summary of how those things will work together. The whole value chain will work together. Diagram of a millet value chain model. It is divided into two parts. We have agriculture upstream, and then we have nutrition downstream. In agriculture upstream, that one includes production and processing, primary production and secondary production. It will involve, farmers group, your youth, millet youth farmers group. Government will provide extension services, maybe through the Ministry of Agriculture. Then project management skill, also they will develop it. Then the input and financial services will be made available to them. All those things will work together at the upstream. Then, at the from the processing angles, factories will be established. We will have all support in form of food safety, packaging, marketing. Their capacity will be developed. Then opportunities will be open to those youth millet farmers, in the producing area, both in the primary and the secondary, that is the processing aspect of it. Then on the downstream will be like what the impact it will have on the society in general. Definitely, because we have so much more millet production, that one definitely it will take care of food security. Then it will ensure nutritious food are being served to children. Take for example children from poor background that can hardly afford good meals. At least they'll be sure that once they go to school, they will take nutritious food, and that nutritious food will take care of their dietary need, daily dietary need. It's a good program for the people as well. Then implementation of value. The second part will also take care of implementation of all these value chain models that we are talking about, like school feeding program, like free agro-industrial zone. All these things will have impact on that society, economically, financially, increase income, job creation. All those things will be included. That is the summary of the model. Then let us look at the expected benefit. Part of the expected benefit, millet and job creation. The millet value chain program will create minimum of 150 jobs. Although all these figures are projections, by the time they are doing project analysis, all this kind of projection based on population, based on the resources available to people, they were able to make all these projections. So create a minimum of 150 jobs in the next 5 years across the participating country. To this end, the program will ensure collaboration and funded working relationship with government, both regional, district level, extension services, community, and farmer group. Then develop and fund in partnership with donor and development partner. Establish skill acquisition center in the region within the project. Those are some of the things that the donor partner can do for the project. Encourage more collaboration with development partner and the program for farmers association to leverage funding and acquire necessary processing technologies, products that will improve nutrition and focus and food security through increased nourishment for women and children. Consume more fortified food and beverages. This kind of a thing will make sure that they will be able to acquire necessary technology, necessary skill, capacity from donor partner, from funding agency. Even it will also help on research finding. Research can also be done on food products that can really increase the nourishment of children and women, most especially pregnant women, lactating women. Fortified food and beverages will be provided for them. The regional government has also encouraged to mount a strong awareness creation training program on processing technology for trainers in the region and districts, inclusive of women in agriculture and youth development initiative. What are we saying? There are existing structures on ground, existing initiative. You can see how this program will work in tandem with those initiatives. The millet value chain program aim at revitalizing the subsector through processing and improvement and introduction of novel food. What do we mean by novel food? Out of the existing food that we have, from research finding, we can even also create a better food that is more commercial and it is more nutritious. Those are the things we are talking about. It is expected that school feeding program strategy will also trigger the emergence and participation of small and medium agro-based industry in the production of fortified products, e.g. high energy food in the country. Even that school program, as I have said the other time, we also create a sort of springboard for SMEs, and some other agro-based industries to really meet up with the demand. Industrial use of millet. We are now talking of heavy industrial use. When we are talking of heavy industrial use, we cannot believe that this kind of use, this kind of demand can even stimulate people to produce up to 1.5 million metric tons of produce for products of millet for energy food like soy millet for blend, for school program, national and world program, and as export product. That will create a sort of huge production. It's a drive. It will drive production drastically above what it used to be. Also, it will stimulate up to 2 million metric tons of high quality flour, binding, flour for binding, different, composting, they can composting it with 20%, of wheat. 20% of it can be included in wheat. Packaged tuwo, it's a sort of tuwo, it's a sort of flour meal in Nigeria, extruded food like noodles, spaghetti, and steam food. Like the presenter yesterday, I've mentioned different kind of food that they have technology to produce. All these things can be brought into the program. This is an example, a picture of industrial processing of millet. Then this is a small scale processing. We can see the difference. Then target areas and beneficiaries. The target area we cover, as we have earlier said, we cover 5 local governments, in a local government in the state, or 5 districts in the region, that the both male and female will be within the age of 18 and 45 years of age. The reason is that it has to start on a pilot basis. The project may, because of the resources available, it may not be able to cover the whole country. We may look for, and again, because of the ecology for millet production, resources, ecology, we may not be able to cover the whole country. So we need to look for an area. And when we are recruiting people, when we are recruiting this beneficiary, also we are talking of youth. Age will also be a criteria. That is why we are looking at age of 18 to 45 years of age. Planned activities. These are the activities that will be carried out during the project implementation. Establishment of improved millet farm across, as we have mentioned, 5 local governments in the state or district within the region. Undertake study of existing millet. We have to look at the stock, a sort of what we have on ground. We undertake study of existing millet processing factory nationwide across Africa. It will be a sort of foundation for us to build on it. Then we look at we try to identify markets in other parts of the world, like Europe, America, for the purpose of market opportunity, where all those things can be put into use. Then we need, because many people may not be aware, or even those people that are aware, they may not actually take it with all seriousness. So we need to develop a sort of documentary movies to create awareness opportunity. It will let people see live and direct, how those things will be put into use. Then, when we are running any project, we need to know where we start. We need to benchmark. So it is necessary for a sort of baseline study, so that at the end of the project, we may be able to adjust our impact. Then there is also need to take an exploratory visit to the proposed partners, like financial institutions. We want to see the facility they have on ground, MDAs, that is ministry, department, and agency, to firm up MOU. Their government agency, the project need to firm up MOU with them, area they will intervene, their promises, all those things will be there. Then we'll be able to, in those areas we identify too, we need to initiate discussion with the hosting communities. The traditional communities in that place need to be sensitized, and they need to buy them into the project. Then we facilitate recruitment of youth through advert, interview, and project officer will be drawn, initially before, because of people with experience. We need to really make use of Ministry of Agriculture. So definitely staff can be seconded, relevant staff can be seconded from Ministry of Agriculture to be the pioneer staff in that project. Engagement of consultant for project design, that one, it is necessary. To also develop project implementations manual, signing of MOU, engagement of consulting firm to work with the project officer, conduct of studies and supervision of the project. Then thereafter, we need to conduct a project startup and M&E workshop. Project startup workshop, that is where responsibility will be assigned to each of the actors in the project. And at the same time, key performance indicator will be identified to measure the progress of each individual actor in the project. Then conduct sensitization and awareness campaign around the state, through the region, through mass media and the rest like that will be done. Like when we were running a ATA project then on cassava, we were with governor of Ondo State, we were with a traditional institution like that in 2012, during when Dr. Akinwumi Adesina was Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria. Those are some of the things we did to make sure that ATA project worked then. Expected benefit. What do we expect from all these programs? The enormous number of youth will be gainfully employed directly or indirectly for activity generated as a result of the program, improve income and well-being of people across the region and the entire country, improve food security, reduce malnutrition, through intensive production of millet. It will generate foreign exchange earnings for the country through export of products from millet. So it will also bring urbanization to rural areas. The rural areas where these projects are being implemented, definitely social amenities, population, labor forces population, all of them will be attracted to these places. It will be developed. Drastically, it will reduce rural-urban migration because, adjoint rural communities around the project, they will also enjoy the spread of the development. So it will also step down, increase insecurity in some sub-Saharan African countries when the youths are being pulled out of crime and they are gainfully employed. And we say challenges. These are the challenges that we may envisage. Funding. In most countries, most especially in developing countries, funding may not be adequate. It may not even be timely at times, from the government. But like in Nigeria, government is trying their best, most especially in development projects like this. They try their best. Then also difficulties in sourcing funds from donors. We all know how to write a proposal for donors before we can get money from to a project from donors. It has a lot of hurdles that you need to scale. Then land acquisition, because of the land tenure system, with good rapport with traditional communities and traditional institutions, we may be able to solve that down. Then political interference. Political interference in the sense that the government of the day, the project operator should be very, how will I put it, diplomatic in knowing the interest of the government of the day and how they can work hand in hand so that, the political will for that project will be there. Then market creation. Market creation, ability of the project to put in place a reliable market, as off-taker of this product. It's very, very millet product and produce is also critical. Industry has to be established. Even apart from the establishment of the industry, standardization of pricing and so many other things has to be there. Then an ability, to lobby government to formulate, favorable policy that will create market. Then we are looking at the action plan for implementation of the value chain. The action plan, the action plan is like, how to kickstart the project and keep it rolling till it will be fully taken over by private sector to ensure sustainability. when we put it on timeline, like commissioning of the project at the beginning of the year, a stakeholder meeting, call people that have something to do with the project together, provision of matching grants, to execute preliminary activities, inauguration of project steering committee. We need a steering committee, a sort of governing board where we have all parties being represented, government, farmers group, they will be in the board. Then baseline studies, we use a consultant. There's need for need assessment survey. That one can be done in the second month. Need assessment survey is important. We listed different models of value chain that we can, models that we can use to drive a value chain. Each of these models may be more suitable to one area than the other based on people's socioeconomic strata. So we need to do a need assessment study to be able to identify the appropriate value chain model that we are going to use in a particular area. Then development of project implementation manual, manual to run the project. We need to use a consultant. Recruitment of key pioneer staff, that one can be done. People can be seconded from Ministry of Agriculture or relevant government department. Then advocacy for political buy-in and beneficiaries buy-in on the project. Then we need to sign memorandum of understanding with state, regional, and participating institutions, exploratory visit to participating agency to assess their facility, monitoring and evaluation startup workshop for the project operator, to determine key performance indicator, disbursement of fund and counterpart fund. Disbursement of fund, although we may have a donor, but at the same time, counterpart fund has to come from the authority, from the government of the country. All those things will be by the middle of the year supposed to have been concluded.
Mr. Bobby, can you come to the conclusion?
Okay. So just along like that, then what again I just want to say is that organization like ADO also can be useful, in area of capacity building of the benefit of the project staff and the beneficiary, also in conduct of survey, consultancy, and all those things. Organization like that can be make use of. So this is the end of my presentation. I thank everyone for listening to me. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bobby. Can you come out from your presentation?